Welcome back to the studio. So today I'm going to get back working on this piece. This was a piece I had to leave, probably a couple months ago now, before the Chinese Cultural Show. It was kind of put away and I kind of forgot about it. So I'm going to get back to work on this piece today. So stick around, I'll tell you what I'm going to do on this, and we're going to get back to a time lapse. Finally, we got a big enough piece that my noggin's not going to block out the whole thing. Yeah, so sometimes you come back to a piece that you've worked on before, and that's always a bit of a tricky proposition, because sometimes it's like whatever it was that prompted you to want to paint it, that's gone, and you just don't feel that desire anymore. Now, luckily for me, that's not happening here. I was really excited about painting this piece. It's a view of Trappers Trail up at Lake Superior Park. And I was actually really enjoying working on it, but I had to put it away because I had a show coming up, and it was just time where I had to start getting everything ready for the show. And then we had our Mother's Day open house, and then I kind of forgot about it. It was kind of put away facing a wall, and I forgot about it. And I just realized that I have this piece to finish off, so I'm really excited about doing that. But it's a little tricky when you come back to work on a piece that's kind of halfway done. And in particular with the water-soluble oils. So you'll know if you've watched my stuff that I put the water-soluble oil medium on the canvas before I start painting. Well, obviously all of this area that I haven't got to would be totally dry. Was totally dry this morning, so I've actually gone back in and put a thin coating of the water-soluble oil on all these areas where you can see the red of the canvas showing through. And then I've actually kind of smoothed it over a little bit, overlapped into the areas that are already painted. That might cause a bit of an issue when the painting is finished in terms of the shine, some areas being shinier than the other, but that will be fixed with varnish. So when you varnish it, that will even out the shine. So here's I'll show you the photo that I'm working of. So this is Trappers Trail up in Lake Superior Park. And so what we have, this is like a big lake with a small lake with a big beaver pond. And so this is the light coming through the trees, kind of shining on the water and reflecting back at us right at the edge of the marsh. And I actually haven't done anything like this. I've done a few from up there, but nothing exactly like this. I'm really excited about showing the reflections on the water, that real sparkle on the water, and having the two areas sparkling. And this area over here, this is just going to be all the marsh grass. And so it's going to be fairly loose, and it's more just about suggesting that and trying to do it and keep the colors interesting, because it's going to be fairly dark. So I want to put a lot of subtle colors in there. So I'm going to go to the DSLR and start it on the time lapse, and yeah, this will be easy for me because I get to paint and don't have to talk. So let's go to the time lapse. Okay, that's it for today. So I actually got a fair bit done. I got all the rest of the kind of foliage area blocked in. And I just kind of indicated the blues of where the reflections are going to be. The reflections are going to be really tricky with the sun reflecting here and also the trees reflecting down. Some of these trees actually come down into the water. So it's going to be a little confusing for me to paint, but also when you look at it, it'll be a little, I don't know if confusing is the right word, but you won't be able to tell necessarily which trees are in front and which reflections are there, because actually when I look at the photo, it's not clear either. So that's the whole idea too, is kind of, yeah, we don't have to necessarily clarify things. Sometimes when things are left a little ambiguous, it allows the viewer to kind of fill in. Sometimes it can be confusing and annoying, and so you have to know the difference between the two. But that's yeah, that's a pretty good day's painting. It did take me a while to get back into the flow. It took me quite a while just working in this little area here to get back in the kind of the rhythm of the same sort of brushwork that I was doing here. I think probably too that's because I've just finished doing a couple small paintings. So when I'm doing the small paintings, I'm using a small brush and doing little strokes. And then to move into a large painting that I'm kind of halfway done, it kind of took a while for me to get into the rhythm of working with the bigger strokes. But then once I got down to here, things moved very, very quickly. While I'm here, we're going to answer one more thing. I get questions, and I welcome your questions and comments. And someone asked me, what's a Stay Wet palette? So I thought I would show you. So this is a Stay Wet palette. It is manufactured by a company called Masterson. And what it basically is, it's like a large Tupperware container. And what I do, so the way this is supposed to be used, this is meant for acrylic. It has like a sponge that goes under here and then the palette paper on top. And then when you put your acrylics on there, the fact that it's continually soaking up water keeps your acrylics wet and usable much, much longer. But you can also use this for your oil paints, because oil paints also dry. They don't dry, they oxidize. But if you cut them off from the air, they dry much slower. So I use like a foam core sheet of plastic cut to the same size as palette paper. And then what happens is when I'm finished, I just pop the palette inside the Stay Wet palette container. And then the lid goes on. These are kind of tricky to get on, but it's like a Tupperware container. And that way these paints will stay wet and usable much, much longer than if I just leave them out. These are also really handy if you're like going to an art club or you're painting on location and you have to travel with your palette where you don't want to get paint all over everything. I actually have 3 of these, so I can have 3 on the go at any given time. But if it's, again, if I'm painting on location and it's time to pack up and move, I just put my palettes in here and seal them up. Otherwise, you know, you're driving around with these open in your car. You're just one kind of oops away from getting paint all over everything in your car. So I like these because they keep the paint wet longer, so I don't have to throw it out, and because it's just easier to have a bunch of wet palettes around and not worry about getting paint all over everything. So I hope you found today interesting and helpful. As usual, if you did, give me a thumbs up. I welcome your comments and questions. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I'm Tim Packer, and I thank you for your time.